I never thought a piece of silk could destroy a marriage, but there it was. A burgundy tie with gold paisley patterns tucked neatly under Lisa's pillow like some kind of twisted calling card. My hands trembled as I held it up to the morning light streaming through our bedroom window. The fabric was expensive, probably Italian. Definitely not mine. I owned exactly 3 ties, all black, all purchased reluctantly for funerals and the occasional client meeting at my graphic design studio. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Lisa," I called out, hearing the shower running in our master bathroom. "Whose tie is this?" The water stopped abruptly. Through the frosted glass door, I could see her silhouette freeze for just a moment, long enough to confirm what my gut already knew. "What tie, honey?" Her voice carried that carefully measured tone she used in court depositions. Lisa was a corporate lawyer, and she could lie with the same precision she used to draft contracts. She emerged wrapped in a towel, water droplets still clinging to her auburn hair. Even after 15 years of marriage, she was undeniably beautiful. High cheekbones, green eyes that could cut glass when she was angry, and a smile that had once made me forget my own name. Now that same smile felt like a weapon. "This one." I dangled the tie between us like evidence in a trial. "Found it under your pillow." Lisa laughed, a sound that used to make my chest warm but now made my stomach clench. "Oh, that's yours, Jack. You must have forgotten." "Right," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "Just like how I forgot to be colorblind. This is burgundy, Lisa. I hate burgundy. You know I hate burgundy." She moved past me to her walk-in closet, dismissing the conversation with a wave of her manicured hand. "You're being paranoid. Maybe it fell out of the laundry basket. Maybe it's from the dry cleaner. Does it really matter?" It mattered. It mattered because Lisa had been working late every night for the past 3 months. It mattered because she'd started going to the gym at 6 in the morning, coming home with perfectly styled hair and makeup that looked suspiciously fresh. It mattered because she'd stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped asking about my day, stopped looking at me like I was anything more than furniture. "I guess not," I lied, pocketing the tie. Just seemed weird. Lisa emerged from the closet in her usual armor, a charcoal gray power suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She kissed my cheek with the efficiency of someone checking an item off a to-do list. "I'll be late tonight. Big case prep with the partners." Another lie, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd been practicing. After she left, I sat on our king-sized bed, the one we'd picked out together during happier times, and stared at the tie. The pattern seemed to mock me, swirling like a visual representation of my unraveling marriage. I'd always prided myself on being observant. It came with the territory of being a graphic designer. You notice details, the way fonts interact, how colors complement or clash, the subtle messages hidden in visual choices. But somehow, I'd missed the signs that my wife was having an affair. Or maybe I hadn't missed them. Maybe I'd just been too afraid to see them. My phone buzzed with a text from Kendra, my office manager and the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Coffee emergency. Your studio. Now. Bringing donuts." Kendra Martinez was 32, fiercely loyal, and had the kind of street smarts that came from growing up in the rougher parts of our mid-sized East Coast city. She'd been running the business side of my design studio for 3 years, ever since I'd realized I was better at creating than managing. I found her in my studio 20 minutes later, surrounded by the organized chaos of my creative space. Converted from an old textile mill, the building still had its original brick walls and enormous windows that let in perfect northern light. Half-finished projects covered every surface, logo designs, website mock-ups, and the occasional fine art piece that kept my soul from completely withering. "You look like someone stole your favorite font," Kendra said, handing me a coffee and a chocolate-glazed donut. "What's wrong?" I pulled out the tie. "Found this under Lisa's pillow this morning." Kendra examined it like a detective studying evidence. "Expensive. Italian silk. Hermes, if I had to guess." She looked up at me with dark eyes that had seen too much for someone her age. "This isn't yours." "No kidding. So what are you going to do about it?" That was the question, wasn't it? Part of me wanted to confront Lisa directly, to demand the truth and have it out in the open. But another part, the part that had learned to think strategically from years of building a business from nothing, wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made any moves. "I need information first," I said finally. "Real information, not just suspicions and a random tie." Kendra nodded approvingly. "Smart. You want me to call Marco?" Marco Santos was Kendra's cousin and my occasional drinking buddy. He ran a small security company that specialized in corporate investigations. More importantly, he was ex-military and had the kind of skills that came in handy when you needed to know things that people didn't want you to know. "Not yet," I said. "Let me try something first." That evening, while Lisa was at her case prep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her things. Not randomly, not frantically, but with the methodical precision of someone conducting a visual audit. Her laptop was password protected, but Lisa had always been creatures of habit. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, her mother's maiden name. Nothing. Then I tried something that made my stomach turn. The date she'd started her current job at Blackwood Sterling and Associates. The screen unlocked. Her email was a goldmine of mundane professional correspondence, but buried in a folder marked personal were messages that made my hands shake. Not explicit love letters, Lisa was too smart for that, but coded communications with someone named E. Caro. "Looking forward to our late-night session. The presentation materials you requested are attached. Jack's been asking questions. We need to be more careful." Ethan Caro. I knew that name. Senior partner at Lisa's firm, recently divorced, drove a Tesla that he parked in the spot next to Lisa's BMW every morning. I'd met him exactly once, at the firm's holiday party 2 years ago. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confident smile that came from never having been told no. The presentation materials were what really caught my attention. Design concepts for a major hotel chain, concepts that looked suspiciously similar to work I'd been developing for a potential client. Work that I'd discussed with Lisa over dinner just last month. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was stealing from me. I closed the laptop and sat in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories. Wedding photos on the mantel, vacation souvenirs on the bookshelf, a throw pillow that Lisa had insisted on buying because it matched her eyes. When she came home at midnight, I was waiting with a glass of wine and what I hoped looked like a welcoming smile. "How was case prep?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said, accepting the wine but not making eye contact. "Ethan's really pushing the team hard on this one." "Ethan Caro?" She paused, the wine glass halfway to her lips. "You know Ethan?" "Met him at the holiday party. Seemed like an interesting guy." "He's brilliant," Lisa said, and there was something in her voice, a warmth that she hadn't directed at me in months. "Really innovative thinking about client relations." I bet he was innovative. I bet he had all kinds of creative ideas about relations. "That's great, honey. I'm glad you're working with people who appreciate your talents." Lisa looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw something that might have been guilt flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the professional mask she wore like armor. "I'm tired," she said. "I'm going to bed." I listened to her moving around upstairs, the sound of water running, drawers opening and closing, the creak of our bed frame as she settled in. When I was sure she was asleep, I retrieved the burgundy tie from my jacket pocket. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start fighting back. The next morning, I called in sick to my own company, and spent the day learning how to be a spy. It turned out the internet was full of helpful advice for suspicious spouses, most of it probably illegal and definitely morally questionable. I started with the basics. Lisa's phone was always within arm's reach, but she'd recently started taking it with her to the bathroom and keeping it face down during dinner. Classic signs according to every cheating spouse website I could find. While she was at work, I installed a GPS tracking app on her phone. It took exactly 3 minutes and felt like the longest 3 minutes of my life. I told myself I was just gathering information, that I needed to know the truth before I could decide what to do with it. The truth, as it turned out, was worse than I'd imagined. Lisa's phone spent every lunch hour at the Grandview Hotel downtown, the same hotel where my stolen design concepts were supposed to be implemented. She wasn't just having an affair, she was conducting business with her lover using my work. I called Marco. "I need a favor," I said, when he picked up on the second ring. "Jack, you sound like hell. What's going on?" Marco Santos was the kind of friend who would help you move a body without asking questions, though hopefully it would never come to that. We'd met 5 years ago when he'd installed a security system in my studio, and we'd bonded over our shared love of craft beer and our mutual disdain for people who double-parked. "Lisa's cheating on me," I said, "with her boss, and they're stealing my work." There was a long pause. "You sure about this?" "I found evidence. I need more." "Okay, meet me at the Anchor in an hour. And Jack, don't do anything stupid until we talk." The Anchor was the kind of dive bar that survived in our gentrifying city by being too stubborn to fade. Dark wood, dim lighting, and a bartender named Frank who'd been pouring drinks since before I was born. It was also the kind of place where you could have a conversation without worrying about who might be listening. Marco was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I slid into the booth across from him, all sharp angles and watchful eyes, like a hawk in a leather jacket. "Show me what you've got," he said without preamble. I laid out everything, the tie, the emails, the GPS tracking, the stolen designs. Marco listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on his tablet. "Ethan Caro," he said when I finished. "I know that name. His company's been bidding on city contracts. Word is he's got connections, if you know what I mean." "What kind of connections?" "The kind that involve envelopes full of cash and building permits that get approved suspiciously fast." Marco leaned back in his seat. "This guy's dirty, Jack. Question is, how dirty is your wife?" That was the question that had been keeping me awake at night. How much of this was Lisa's idea? Was she an innocent victim of a manipulative boss, or was she an active participant in stealing my work and destroying my marriage? "I need to know everything," I said, "about both of them." Marco nodded. "I can help with that, but it's going to cost you, and not just money. Once you go down this road, there's no going back. You sure you want to know the truth?" I thought about the last 3 months, the distance, the lies, the growing certainty that the woman I'd married was becoming a stranger. Then I thought about my design concepts being used to make Ethan Caro rich while I struggled to pay the rent on my studio. "I'm sure." "Okay, give me 48 hours. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of normal life, meeting with clients, reviewing design proposals, pretending to care about font choices and color palettes. But my mind was elsewhere, imagining what Marco might be discovering. Lisa, meanwhile, seemed to be operating under the assumption that she was fooling me completely. She hummed in the shower, smiled at her phone during dinner, and even suggested we plan a weekend getaway. "Maybe somewhere warm," she said over Chinese takeout. "I could use some sun." "That sounds nice," I replied, wondering if she was planning to take Ethan instead. On Thursday evening, Marco called. "Meet me at the studio. Bring coffee. You're going to need it." I found him in my office, surrounded by manila folders and photographs. His expression was grim. "How bad?" I asked, setting down 2 cups of coffee. "Bad. Your wife and Caro have been planning this for months. It's not just an affair, Jack. It's a business partnership. He spread the photographs across my desk, like a dealer laying out cards. Lisa and Ethan at the Grandview Hotel. Lisa and Ethan at a restaurant I couldn't afford. Lisa and Ethan in the parking garage of her office building, and the body language left no doubt about what they were discussing. Here's where it gets interesting, Marco continued, pulling out a folder marked with Ethan's name. Caro's been positioning himself to take over the hotel project, but he needed original design concepts to seal the deal. Enter your wife, who's been feeding him your work for the past 3 months. How do you know all this? I have a contact at the hotel. Caro presented your designs as his own last week. He's already signed the preliminary contract. The room seemed to tilt sideways. He's using my work to steal my client. Gets worse. I did some digging into Caro's background. The man's got a pattern. This isn't the first time he's used inside information to undercut competitors, and it's not the first time he's seduced a colleague's wife to get access to proprietary information. Marco pulled out another folder, this one containing legal documents and newspaper clippings. 3 years ago, Portland. 5 years ago, Atlanta. Same pattern every time. Find a married woman with access to valuable information, seduce her, use her to destroy her husband's business, then move on to the next city. I stared at the evidence, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Lisa doesn't know? Hard to say. Could be she's a victim, could be she's a willing participant, but either way, she's helping him destroy your life. I picked up one of the photographs, Lisa and Ethan leaving the hotel together, her hand on his arm, both of them smiling like they'd just won the lottery, which, in a way, they had. What do I do now? Marco leaned back in his chair. That depends. You want to save your marriage or destroy theirs? I looked around my studio, at the work I'd built from nothing, the dreams I'd turned into reality through sheer stubborn persistence. Then I thought about Lisa, humming in the shower while she planned to leave me for a man who made a living destroying people's lives. I want them to pay, I said. Both of them. Marco smiled, and it wasn't a particularly nice smile. Now you're talking my language. The plan we developed was elegant in its simplicity. If Lisa and Ethan wanted to play games with stolen information, we'd give them some information to steal. Information that would blow up in their faces at exactly the right moment. I spent the weekend creating a fake design proposal for a fictional casino project. It looked legitimate. Professional layouts, detailed specifications, even a fake client contact who was actually Marco's cousin in Atlantic City. The only problem was that every single element of the design violated local building codes in ways that wouldn't be obvious until someone tried to actually implement them. On Monday morning, I left the fake proposal prominently displayed on my home office desk and mentioned casually to Lisa that I was excited about the big casino project I was hoping to land. That sounds interesting, she said, and I could practically see her filing the information away for later use. Tuesday evening, while Lisa was at another late meeting, I used the spare key to Ethan's Tesla that Marco had somehow acquired to leave a small surprise in his car. Nothing destructive, just a manila envelope containing photos of him with his previous victims, along with a note that said, "Patterns are dangerous things. Someone's watching." Wednesday morning brought the first sign that our plan was working. Lisa came downstairs looking frazzled, her usual morning composure cracked around the edges. "Everything okay?" I asked, looking up from my coffee. "Fine," she said, but her hands were shaking as she poured her own cup. "Just work stress." "Anything I can help with?" She looked at me sharply, as if trying to determine whether the question was innocent or loaded. "No, it's just some complications with a client." I nodded sympathetically. "Well, if you need to talk about it, I'm here." The irony wasn't lost on me, offering to help my wife deal with the stress of stealing from me, but it was important to maintain the facade of ignorance until the moment was right to drop the hammer. Thursday brought confirmation that the fake casino proposal had taken the bait. Marco's cousin called to report that someone had contacted him asking about the project timeline and whether he was satisfied with his current design team. "They're moving fast," Marco said when I called to update him. "Caro must be desperate to close another deal." "Good. How long before they realize the designs are worthless?" "Depends how thorough their due diligence is. Could be days, could be weeks." I was hoping for weeks. I wanted them to get invested in the project, to start making promises they couldn't keep, before they discovered that their stolen prize was actually a poison pill. Friday evening, Lisa came home with news that made my heart race. "I'm going to be traveling more over the next few weeks," she announced over dinner. "Big project for the firm. I might need to go to Atlantic City." "Atlantic City?" I kept my voice carefully neutral. "That's sudden. New client, casino development, very hush-hush." I nodded as if this made perfect sense, while internally celebrating the fact that they'd swallowed our bait completely. "Well, I hope it goes well." "It will," Lisa said, and there was a confidence in her voice that I hadn't heard in months. "Ethan thinks this could be the project that really puts the firm on the map." I'm sure he did. I wondered how confident he'd feel when he discovered that his breakthrough project was designed to collapse under the weight of its own legal impossibilities. That weekend, I decided to accelerate the timeline. While Lisa was at her Saturday yoga class, which according to the GPS tracker was actually the Grand View Hotel, I paid a visit to the Anchor. The bar was busier than usual for a Saturday afternoon, filled with the kind of people who'd known each other for decades and weren't afraid to speak their minds. I'd been coming here long enough to be accepted as a regular, which meant I could count on a certain amount of loyalty when I needed it. "Frank," I said, sliding onto my usual bar stool, "I need a favor." Frank Morrison was 65 years old and had been bartending since before craft cocktails were a thing. He knew everyone in the neighborhood, heard every piece of gossip, and had a memory like a steel trap. "What kind of favor?" he asked, polishing a glass with practiced efficiency. "The kind where you accidentally let slip to certain people that Ethan Caro has been bragging about stealing business from local competitors." Frank's eyes narrowed. "Caro? That slick bastard with the fancy car?" "That's the one." "What's he done to you, Jack?" I gave Frank the abbreviated version: the cheating wife, the stolen designs, the pattern of destroying local businesses. By the time I finished, half the bar was listening, and the mood had turned decidedly hostile. "Snake," muttered Tommy Rodriguez, a local contractor who'd lost 3 bids to mysteriously well-informed competitors over the past year. I knew something was fishy about those projects. "We should do something about this," added Sarah Chen, who owned a small architecture firm downtown. "Guys like Caro think they can come into our city and push us around." I held up my hands. "I'm not asking anyone to do anything illegal. I just think people should know what kind of man they're dealing with." "Information's not illegal," Frank said with a grin that suggested he understood exactly what I was asking for, "and neither is making sure that information gets to the right people." By Sunday evening, word had spread through the local business community like wildfire. Marco called to report that 3 different people had contacted him asking about Ethan Caro's business practices, and someone had already posted a review on the firm's website questioning their ethical standards. "You've got them rattled," Marco said. "Caro's been making calls all day, trying to do damage control." "Good. But I want more than rattled. I want them destroyed. Patience, my friend. The best revenge is the kind that builds slowly and hits hard. Trust the process." Monday morning brought the first real crack in Lisa's composure. She came downstairs pale and distracted, her phone buzzing constantly with calls she kept declining. "Bad morning?" I asked. "Just work stuff," she said, but her voice was strained. "People asking questions about things they don't understand." "What kind of questions?" She looked at me suspiciously, as if trying to determine how much I knew. "Business questions. about clients and projects. Well, I'm sure you and Ethan can handle whatever it is. At the mention of Ethan's name, Lisa's face went white. Why would you say that? Say what? You're working on projects together, right? I just assumed you'd handle it together. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Was I innocent or playing games? Did I know about the affair, or was I just making conversation? Right, she said finally. Of course. After she left for work, I called Kendra to check in on the studio. Business was actually picking up. Apparently, word was spreading that I was the designer whose work had been stolen, and people were rallying to support the local underdog. You've got 3 new clients this week, Kendra reported, including that hotel chain you've been trying to land for months. Seriously? Apparently, they heard about what happened with the casino project and decided they wanted to work with someone who had integrity and original vision. Their words, not mine. I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. Sometimes karma works faster than you expect. Speaking of karma, Kendra said, there's something else you should know. Lisa called here this morning, asking about your recent projects. I told her you were too busy to take her call. She called the studio? Sounded desperate, like she was fishing for information about something specific. I thought about the fake casino proposal still sitting on my desk at home. If Lisa was getting desperate, it meant they were starting to realize that their stolen prize might not be as valuable as they'd thought. Thanks for the heads up. And Kendra? If she calls again, feel free to be less than helpful. Oh, I was planning on it. That evening, I decided it was time to turn up the heat. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Lisa came home Tuesday evening with red eyes and the kind of frantic energy that comes from a day spent putting out fires. She paced around our living room like a caged animal, her phone clutched in her white-knuckled grip. Rough day? I asked from the couch, where I was pretending to read a design magazine. Someone's been spreading lies about the firm, she said without looking at me. Malicious gossip designed to hurt our reputation. That's terrible. What kind of lies? She stopped pacing and stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Questions about our business practices, suggestions that we've been unethical in our client acquisition. Well, that's obviously not true. You're the most ethical person I know. The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but they had the desired effect. Lisa's face crumpled, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. Jack, she said, sitting down beside me on the couch. I need to tell you something. Here it comes, I thought. The confession, the moment of truth. I've been working very closely with Ethan Caro on some new projects, she began, her voice carefully measured. And I think I might have made some mistakes. What kind of mistakes? I shared some information that I shouldn't have shared. About your work, about your clients. She looked down at her hands. I thought I was helping, but I think I might have put you at a disadvantage. I stared at her, amazed by the careful way she was crafting her confession, admitting to enough to seem honest while leaving out the most damaging parts. It was masterful, really. What kind of information? I asked. Design concepts, client lists, things that Ethan said would help him understand the local market better. She reached for my hand. I'm so sorry, Jack. I never meant for it to hurt you. I let her take my hand, feeling the familiar softness of her skin, while my mind raced through the implications of her partial confession. She was trying to get ahead of the story, to control the narrative before I could discover the full truth. Is that all? I asked quietly. She hesitated, just for a moment, but long enough to confirm that there was more. Much more. Yes, she lied. That's all. I nodded as if I believed her. Well, I appreciate you telling me. These things happen. The important thing is that we're honest with each other. Relief flooded her face. So, you're not angry? I'm disappointed, I said. which was true enough. But I'm not angry. We'll figure it out together. She squeezed my hand. I love you, Jack. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but I love you. Another lie, delivered with the kind of practiced sincerity that made my skin crawl. But I squeezed back and smiled like a man who believed his wife was telling him the truth. I love you too, I said. After she went to bed, I called Marco. She's trying to control the damage, I reported. Admitted to sharing information but not to the affair. Smart woman. She's testing to see how much you know. What's our next move? Time to force their hand. How do you feel about a little public theater? Wednesday morning, I put Marco's plan into action. I called Lisa at work and asked her to meet me for lunch at Café Luna, a trendy spot downtown that was always packed with lawyers, business people, and local gossips. Is everything okay? She asked when she arrived, looking around nervously at the crowded restaurant. Everything's fine, I said, standing to kiss her cheek. I just wanted to take my wife to lunch. Is that a crime? She relaxed slightly, though I could see her scanning the room to make sure Ethan wasn't anywhere nearby. He wasn't. According to Marco, he was across town at a damage control meeting with the casino client who was starting to ask uncomfortable questions about the building code violations in their original design proposal. This is nice, Lisa said, settling into her chair. We should do this more often. I was thinking the same thing. In fact, I had an idea about that. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. Not an engagement ring, but close enough to make Lisa's eyes widen with what looked like panic. Jack, what is this? Open it and see. Inside the box was a key, specifically a key to a cabin I'd rented in the mountains for the weekend. But Lisa didn't know that. All she knew was that her husband was giving her mysterious gifts at a very inconvenient time. It's a key to a cabin, I explained. I thought we could get away this weekend. Just the two of us. No work, no phones, no distractions. Lisa stared at the key like it was a poisonous snake. This weekend? Is that a problem? I might have to work. The casino project is at a critical stage. The casino project can wait. When's the last time we had a weekend together? I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to get out of this without arousing suspicion. She probably had plans with Ethan, plans that definitely didn't include a romantic weekend with her husband. Let me check my schedule, she said finally. I'll let you know tonight. Fair enough. But Lisa? I leaned forward and took her hand. I really think we need this. Things have been distant lately. I want to work on us. Guilt flickered across her face, genuine guilt, which surprised me. Maybe there was still some part of her that remembered what we used to have. You're right, she said. We do need to work on us. After lunch, I walked Lisa back to her office building, where we ran into exactly the person I'd been hoping to see, Ethan Caro himself, looking harried and significantly less confident than the last time I'd seen him. Jack, he said with forced enthusiasm, good to see you again. Ethan, how's business? Busy. You know how it is. His eyes darted between Lisa and me, clearly trying to assess the situation. I was just telling Lisa about our weekend getaway plans, I said cheerfully. Romantic cabin in the mountains. No work allowed. Ethan's smile faltered. This weekend? You bet. I figure it's time Lisa and I reconnected. Really focused on our marriage. You know what I mean? Lisa looked like she wanted to disappear into the sidewalk. Ethan looked like he wanted to punch me. I looked like a devoted husband planning a surprise for his wife. Well, Ethan said tightly, that sounds wonderful. It will be. Lisa's been working so hard lately, she deserves a break from all the stress. I smiled at him. I'm sure you understand. Of course. Family comes first. Exactly. I kissed Lisa's cheek. I'll see you at home, honey. We can finalize our plans tonight. As I walked away, I could hear them having a tense, whispered conversation behind me. Whatever they were saying, it didn't sound like they were making weekend plans. That evening, Lisa came home with the news I'd been expecting. "I can't go this weekend," she announced. "The casino project really is at a critical stage. If I don't work through the weekend, we could lose the client." "That's disappointing," I said, "but I understand. Work comes first." She looked relieved. "Thank you for being so understanding." "Of course. Maybe we can reschedule for next weekend." "Maybe." But I knew there wouldn't be a next weekend. Not for us, anyway. Because by next weekend, Lisa and Ethan's carefully constructed house of lies would be burning to the ground. Thursday morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "It's time," Marco said. "The casino client just figured out that the designs are worthless. They're demanding answers, and Caro's in full panic mode." "What about Lisa?" "She's about to find out that her boyfriend isn't the business genius she thought he was. Question is, what do you want to do when the shit hits the fan?" I looked around our house, at the wedding photos, the shared memories, the life we'd built together over 15 years. Then I thought about the burgundy tie, the stolen designs, and the months of lies. "I want to be there when it happens," I said. "I want to watch it all fall apart." "Then get ready, because it's about to get very interesting." Friday afternoon brought the first domino falling. Lisa came home early, her face pale and her hands shaking as she poured herself a glass of wine with the desperation of someone who'd just watched her world explode. "Bad day?" I asked, looking up from my laptop, where I'd been working on a legitimate project for a legitimate client, the hotel chain that had hired me after hearing about my integrity and original vision. "The worst," she said, downing half the wine in one gulp. "The casino client pulled out. They're claiming the designs were fundamentally flawed and threatening to sue for fraud." "That's terrible. How could something like that happen?" She looked at me sharply, and I could see her trying to figure out if my concern was genuine or if I somehow knew more than I was letting on. "Someone gave us bad information," she said carefully. "Information that we trusted without verifying properly." "What kind of bad information?" "Design specifications that looked legitimate but were actually problematic." She finished the wine and immediately poured another glass. "The client is saying we tried to defraud them with designs that could never be legally implemented." I frowned as if trying to understand. "But where would you get design specifications? I thought Ethan's firm handled legal work, not design." Another sharp look. "We consulted with local experts." "Which experts?" "It doesn't matter now. The damage is done." But it did matter, and we both knew it. Lisa was trying to figure out how much I knew about the source of those design specifications, while I was enjoying watching her squirm. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. "Caro just got fired. Partners held an emergency meeting. Word is spreading fast." I excused myself to go to the bathroom and called Marco back. "They cut him loose?" I asked quietly. "Like a cancer." Apparently this wasn't his first questionable project. The partners decided he was too much of a liability. Marco's voice was grim with satisfaction. "He's persona non grata in the legal community now. No firm in the city will touch him." "What about Lisa?" "Still employed, but barely. She's being reassigned to smaller cases while they investigate her role in the casino debacle." I smiled grimly. "Good. Let her sweat for a while." When I returned to the living room, Lisa was on her third glass of wine and pacing again. "Jack," she said without looking at me, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course. The casino project designs, did they come from you?" I let the question hang in the air for a moment, watching her face as she waited for my answer. She was terrified of what I might say, which told me everything I needed to know about her level of involvement. "Why would you ask that?" I said finally. "Because they looked familiar, and because I know I mentioned your casino interest to some people at work. You mentioned my casino interest? She realized her mistake immediately. We'd never discussed any casino interest because there wasn't one, until I'd created the fake project specifically to trap her and Ethan. I thought you mentioned working on casino designs. When did I mention that? I don't remember exactly. Recently. Lisa, I've never worked on a casino project in my life. You know that. She stared at me, and I could see the moment when she realized she'd been caught in a lie. The question was whether she'd double down or come clean. She doubled down. You must have mentioned it. Otherwise, how would I know to bring it up? I have no idea, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that I've never worked on casino designs, and I've never given you any information about casino projects. Then where did those designs come from? I shrugged. Maybe you should ask Ethan. At the mention of Ethan's name, Lisa went completely still. Why would I ask Ethan? Because he's the one who was using the designs, right? Maybe he knows where they came from. How do you know Ethan was using the designs? Another mistake. She was rattled and not thinking clearly, which was exactly where I wanted her. You just told me the casino client was dealing with Ethan's firm. I assumed he was the one presenting the designs. Right, of course. But her voice was uncertain. That evening, while Lisa was upstairs taking what she called a stress shower, Ethan called the house. I answered on the second ring. Jack, is Lisa there? She's in the shower. Can I take a message? There was a long pause. This is Ethan Caro. Oh, hi, Ethan. How are you holding up? Lisa told me about the casino project. That sounds like a real nightmare. Another pause. Yeah, it's been challenging. I'm sure it has. Lisa's pretty upset about it. She seems to think someone gave you bad information. Did she say who? No, but she's been asking me weird questions about casino designs. I told her I've never worked on anything like that, but she seems convinced I mentioned it to her somehow. I could practically hear Ethan's mind racing on the other end of the line. He was trying to figure out if I was innocent or playing games, just like Lisa had been. Interesting, he said finally. Is there anything I can help with? I mean, I know you and Lisa have been working closely together. If there's anything I can do to support the team. No, he said quickly. No, that won't be necessary. Okay. Well, I'll tell Lisa you called. Actually, don't worry about it. I'll catch up with her at work. But he wouldn't, because according to Marco, Ethan was no longer welcome at the firm. He'd been escorted out that afternoon with a box of personal belongings and a stern warning about confidentiality agreements. When Lisa came downstairs, I didn't mention Ethan's call. Instead, I suggested we order pizza and watch a movie, something normal and domestic and completely at odds with the chaos swirling around us. That sounds nice, she said, though she spent the entire evening checking her phone and looking increasingly agitated. Saturday morning brought the final piece of the puzzle. Lisa left early for what she said was an emergency meeting at the firm, but the GPS tracker on her phone told a different story. She was at the Grandview Hotel, probably meeting with Ethan to figure out their next move. I decided it was time to crash their party. I found them in the hotel restaurant, sitting at a corner table with their heads close together in intense conversation. Lisa looked haggard, her usual polished appearance replaced by the rumpled desperation of someone who hadn't slept. Ethan looked even worse, unshaven, wearing the same clothes as yesterday, with the hollow-eyed look of a man whose carefully constructed life had just collapsed. I walked over to their table with a cheerful smile. Well, this is a surprise, I said, pulling up a chair without being invited. Mind if I join you? Lisa went white. Ethan looked like he wanted to run. Jack, Lisa stammered, what are you doing here? Having breakfast, same as you, apparently. I signaled the waitress for coffee. How's the emergency meeting going? What emergency meeting? Ethan asked. The one at the firm. Lisa said she had to work this morning. Lisa and Ethan exchanged a look, that confirmed everything I'd suspected about their relationship and their level of coordination. "There was a change of plans," Lisa said weakly. "I can see that." I looked around the restaurant, the same restaurant where they'd been conducting their affair for months, according to Marco's surveillance. "Nice place. You two come here often?" Another loaded look between them. "Sometimes," Ethan said carefully. "For business meetings." "Business meetings, right." I leaned back in my chair. "Speaking of business, I heard about your employment situation, Ethan. That must be tough." His face darkened. "Where did you hear that?" "Word gets around, small business community and all that." I accepted my coffee from the waitress with a grateful nod. "I also heard some interesting things about the casino project." "What kind of things?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Well, apparently the designs you were using were completely worthless, full of building code violations and legal impossibilities. The client is furious." I took a sip of coffee. "Makes you wonder where those designs came from, doesn't it?" The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could see them both trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I was guessing, and how much trouble they were in. "Jack," Lisa said finally, "I think we should go home and talk privately." "Why? We're all friends here, right? Besides, I think Ethan deserves to know the truth about those designs." "What truth?" Ethan asked. I smiled at him, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. "The truth is that those designs came from me. Lisa stole them from my home office and gave them to you, thinking she was helping you steal a client from a local competitor." Lisa gasped. Ethan went very still. "The problem is," I continued, "those designs were completely fake. I created them specifically to trap whoever was stealing my work. Every single element was designed to be legally impossible to implement." The color drained from Ethan's face. "You're lying." "Am I? Check with your casino client. Ask them about the building code violations. Ask them about the structural impossibilities. Ask them why they're threatening to sue for fraud." Ethan turned to Lisa with an expression of pure fury. "You told me he was an idiot. You told me he'd never figure it out." I thought," Lisa stammered. "You thought wrong," I said pleasantly. "About a lot of things, actually." I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo, one of Marco's surveillance pictures showing them leaving this very restaurant together, Lisa's hand on Ethan's arm, both of them smiling. "Nice picture, don't you think? Very romantic. I have about 50 more just like it." Lisa buried her face in her hands. Ethan looked like he wanted to hit something. "What do you want?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Justice," I said simply. "You've been stealing from local businesses for years, Ethan, using inside information to destroy people's livelihoods. That ends now. You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" I pulled out a manila folder and spread its contents across the table. Copies of emails, financial records, surveillance photos, and a detailed timeline of their activities over the past 3 months. "I think I can prove quite a lot, actually." Ethan stared at the evidence, his face cycling through anger, fear, and resignation. "What do you want?" he asked again. "I want you to leave, today. This city, this state, this entire region. I want you to disappear and never come back." "And if I don't?" "Then this folder goes to the police, the State Bar Association, and every business journal in the tri-state area. Your career will be over, and you'll probably face criminal charges." Ethan looked at Lisa, then back at me. "What about her?" I turned to my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt something cold and final settle in my chest. "Lisa made her choice," I said. "Now she gets to live with the consequences." The confrontation at the hotel restaurant was just the beginning. Over the next week, I watched with grim satisfaction as the carefully constructed lives of Lisa and Ethan crumbled like a house of cards in a hurricane. Ethan, faced with the choice between criminal prosecution and voluntary exile, chose exile. By Tuesday, his Tesla was gone from the firm's parking garage, his luxury condo was up for sale, and word on the street was that he'd taken a job with a small firm in Montana, a significant step down from his previous position as a senior partner in a prestigious East Coast firm. Lisa's fall was slower, but no less devastating. She came home each evening looking more defeated than the last, her confidence eroded by whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room and colleagues who suddenly had no time for lunch meetings. "They're treating me like a pariah," she said Thursday evening, slumping into a chair at our kitchen table. "Like I'm some kind of criminal." "Are you?" I asked quietly. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one. Are you a criminal, Lisa?" "I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. That doesn't make me a criminal." "You stole proprietary information from your husband and gave it to your lover so he could destroy my business. What would you call that?" The words hung in the air between us like a blade. Lisa stared at me, and I could see the exact moment when she realized that the game was over, that I knew everything, and that there was no point in pretending anymore. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About the affair? Since I found the tie? About the business theft? Since I installed tracking software on your phone and read your emails?" She winced. "You've been spying on me. You've been cheating on me and stealing from me. I'd say we're even." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, staring down at her hands. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I never meant for it to go this far." "Which part? The cheating or the stealing?" "Any of it." She looked up at me with something that might have been genuine remorse. "It started as just attention. Ethan made me feel important, valued, like I was more than just someone's wife." "You were never just someone's wife. You were my partner, my equal." "Was I?" "Because it didn't feel that way. It felt like I was supporting your dreams while mine got smaller and smaller." I stared at her, genuinely surprised. "Your dreams? Lisa, you're a successful lawyer. You make more money than I do. You have your own career, your own life." "Do I? Or do I have the life you wanted me to have? The successful wife who looks good at client dinners and doesn't cause problems? That's not fair, isn't it?" There was anger in her voice now, the first real emotion I'd seen from her in months. "When's the last time you asked me what I wanted, what I dreamed about, what would make me happy?" The question hit harder than I'd expected, because I couldn't answer it. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped talking about dreams and started talking about mortgages and client meetings and whose turn it was to pick up the dry cleaning. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. "So you decided to destroy my dreams instead," I said. "I didn't set out to destroy anything. Ethan said he could help both of us, that his connections could get you bigger clients, better projects. By stealing my work and passing it off as his own? By using your work as a starting point for bigger things, he said you'd never have to know, that everyone would benefit. Everyone except me." Lisa was crying now, tears streaming down her face as 15 years of marriage dissolved into recriminations and regret. "I know I screwed up," she said. "I know I hurt you. But Jack, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it." "Can we? Can we work through the fact that you've been lying to me for months? Can we work through the fact that you gave another man information that he used to try to destroy my business? Can we work through the fact that you were planning to leave me for him?" She looked up sharply. "How did you—" "I heard the recordings, Lisa. The ones where you and Ethan talked about your future together. The ones where you laughed about my small-time ambitions and discussed the best way to get rid of me." The fight went out of her then, her shoulders sagging as she realized there was nothing left to deny, nothing left to explain away. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you move out. We get divorced. We divide our assets and go our separate ways. And the evidence you have? The photos and recordings? Stay private as long as you don't contest the divorce or try to take more than your fair share. She nodded slowly. That's generous. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I want this to be over. I want to move on with my life. That weekend, Lisa moved out of our house and into a small apartment across town. She took her clothes, her books, and half our furniture, leaving behind 15 years of shared memories and a marriage that had faded somewhere between the burgundy tie and the fake casino proposal. I spent Sunday alone in the house, walking through rooms that felt simultaneously too empty and too full of ghosts. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I found a note she'd left on the dresser. Jack, it read, I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't blame you. I know I destroyed something precious, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. But I want you to know that I did love you. Maybe not well, maybe not faithfully, but I did love you. I hope someday you can remember the good times without hating me completely. Lisa. I read the note twice, then threw it away. Monday morning brought news that put the final nail in the coffin of Lisa and Ethan's scheme. The casino client had filed a formal complaint with the State Bar Association, alleging fraud and professional misconduct. An investigation was underway, and while Lisa probably wouldn't face criminal charges, her legal career was effectively over. They're offering her a deal, Marco reported over coffee at the Anchor. Voluntary resignation in exchange for no formal sanctions. She'll take it, I said. She doesn't have a choice. What about you? How are you holding up? I thought about the question. How was I holding up? My marriage was over, my trust had been shattered, and my life had been turned upside down. But I was also free from the lies, free from the constant tension, free to build something new. I'm okay, I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. I'm actually okay. That afternoon, I got a call that confirmed my optimism was justified. The hotel chain that had hired me after hearing about my integrity and original vision wanted to expand our contract. They were impressed with my work and wanted me to design 3 more properties. It's a 2-year contract, my new client explained. Significant money and the kind of project that could really put your firm on the map. I looked around my studio, at the work I'd built from nothing, the dreams I'd refused to let anyone else destroy. Kendra was at her desk, fielding calls from potential new clients. Marco was in the corner, installing an upgraded security system. The afternoon light was streaming through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like possibilities in the air. I'm interested, I said. Very interested. 2 weeks later, I was working late in my studio when I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Lisa getting out of her Honda. She'd had to trade in the BMW when her legal career ended, and walking slowly toward the building. I met her at the door. Hi, she said quietly. I hope it's okay that I came by. What do you need, Lisa? I wanted to return this. She held out a key, the spare key to my studio that I'd given her years ago when we were still partners in everything. You could have mailed it. I could have, but I wanted to see you, to see how you're doing. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the confrontation at the hotel. She looked older, tired, but there was something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. Honesty, maybe, or just the exhaustion that comes from finally stopping the pretense. I'm doing well, I said. Business is good. Life is simpler. She nodded. I'm glad. You deserve good things, Jack. You always did. What about you? What are your plans? I'm leaving town. There's a nonprofit in Portland that's offered me a job. Legal aid for low-income families. It doesn't pay much, but... She shrugged. Maybe it's time I did something that actually helped people instead of just making money. That sounds like a good choice. We stood there for a moment, Two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now strangers preparing to say goodbye for the last time. "Jack," Lisa said finally, "I know this doesn't change anything, but I am sorry. For all of it. You deserved better than what I gave you." "Yes," I said simply. "I did." She handed me the key, and our fingers brushed for just a moment, a ghost of the intimacy we'd once shared. "Goodbye, Jack." "Goodbye, Lisa." I watched her drive away, then locked the door and went back to my work. On my desk was a design for the hotel chain's newest property, a boutique resort that would showcase local artists and celebrate regional culture. It was the kind of project I'd always dreamed of, the kind of work that felt like more than just a job. I picked up my pencil and got back to work, building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, I was finally, truly free. The burgundy tie that had started it all was still in my desk drawer, wrapped in tissue paper like evidence from a crime that had already been solved. Sometimes I took it out and looked at it, remembering the moment when my old life had ended and my new one had begun. It was a reminder that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best discoveries, about others, about yourself, and about what you're really capable of when you stop being afraid of the truth. I never saw Lisa or Ethan again, but I heard through the grapevine that she was doing well in Portland, working for legal aid and dating a social worker who appreciated her intelligence and integrity. Ethan, according to Marco's contacts, had struggled to rebuild his career and eventually left the legal profession entirely. As for me, I built the business I'd always wanted, surrounded myself with people I could trust, and learned to sleep peacefully in a bed that held no secrets. The house felt different without Lisa's presence, emptier in some ways, but also cleaner, like a space that had been cleared of clutter and could finally be used for its intended purpose. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I met someone new, a photographer named Rebecca, who had her own studio in the arts district and her own dreams that didn't require anyone else's sacrifice. We took things slowly, building trust the way you build anything worthwhile, carefully, deliberately, with attention to the foundation. But that's a different story, for a different time. This story ends with a man standing in his studio at midnight, looking out at a city full of lights and possibilities, holding a burgundy tie that had once represented betrayal, but now symbolized something else entirely. The moment when he stopped being a victim and started being the author of his own life. I wrapped the tie back in its tissue paper and put it away. Then I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked out into the night, leaving the past where it belonged and moving toward whatever came next.